array right here. Great. And all we're going to return is return scene array. And I'm just gonna, you can do this in one line, dot filter, but I'm just gonna do it like this, dot filter, user.email is identical to user email, which we've written up there. And since it needs to be a Boolean, we're gonna use dot length is not equal to 0. So basically what we're gonna do is first we're gonna check if there is an existing last message. If there is no last message, we're gonna return false to our Boolean has seen, because there is no way we can see that message. Next thing we're going to do is we are going to structure our scene array using last message.scene, and we're going to use this safety pipe empty array so that we can safely run dot filter on this scene array without JavaScript giving us an error like you cannot use dot filter on undefined. So that's why we do this safety right here. Next thing we check if there is no user email, because if there is no user email, there is nothing we can compare it in this filter to. How is it possible that there is no user email? Well, that's because the session hook, which we use right here, needs some time to load. So that's why I put it in a use memo here, so it's immediately updated once it is loaded. Perfect. And then what we do is we go through the scene array, which is going to hold all the users who have seen the message sent, and we're going to filter them. Basically, this is just a way, there are many ways you can do this, but I just chose this method for now. I'm going to filter the scene array to only find the user, which is the current logged in user, and I just confirm that the length of that array is not 0, meaning that there is at least one user inside that matches the email of the logged in user, meaning that the logged in user has seen this message. Alright, and in the dependency array, all you have to do is write user email and last message like this. Perfect. And the last variable we're going to write before we start on the UI is the last message text. So const last message text is also a use memo. Don't forget the dependency array. First thing we're going to do is we're going to check if the last message is actually an image, right? Because if it is an image, we cannot show any text to the user. So what we're going to write is if last message question mark dot image. In that case, we're going to return send an image like that. Send an image just like this. All right. And if there is a body of the last message, that means that there is some text that we can display. So if last message question mark dot body, in that case, we can safely return last message dot body like this. So this is going to be the actual message that someone has sent. And if there is none of this, that means that we have just started the conversation and there is not a single message sent in there yet, which is the case for our two conversations because we do not have a functionality to create messages at all. So what we do here is return started a conversation like this. Perfect. And the only thing we need in the dependency array is last message like this. Perfect. And now we are ready to start styling our conversation box right here. So I'm just going to remove this text inside. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give this some class names. So before I add a class name, actually we can add an onClick to trigger handle click, which we defined. It was the first thing we wrote in this function. So a very simple redirect to /conversations/ the conversation ID. This route does not exist yet, but we're going to do that later on. All right. Below this onClick, we're also going to add class name. It's going to be CLSX. And again, I'm going to use backticks so I can safely do this in multiple lines. I'm going to give it a w-full relative flex items-center space-x-3 hover bg-neutral -100 rounded -lg transition and cursor -pointer. All right, and in the second argument of the CLSX, so you add a comma and then you write a second argument. I'm going to use the selected boolean to either show bg-neutral -100 or bg-white like this. All right, and now what I'm gonna add here is avatar, and I'm gonna give it a user of other user like this. And we do not have avatar imported, so just make sure you import avatar from @/app/components avatar, and you can save the file. And now you can see that I have the other user inside, but there is an error we are having here, so I'm just gonna go ahead and quickly check what's going on here. Yes, so I did a mistake in my use other user hook. So that is a very simple fix. Go back into your hooks, use other user right here, and instead of returning the entire array, because .filter returns an array, you can just write 0 like this, and that is going to return a single user. And I'm just going to refresh my page here. And there you go. You can see how now I show this avatar, the correct avatar of the conversation, of the user I started the conversation with. Perfect. So I just want to confirm that you understand what we did with this other user thing. So in my use other user hook right here, I just picked the first user from this array, which is guaranteed for us to be the user which is not our current user. So previously I just did this, and that is incorrect because this is an array of users. What we want is just a single user, so then this return function right here only gives us a single user, and then that works well with this avatar which expects a single user. Great. And in this class names right here, below cursor pointer, I also want to give it another style of P-3. So we have a bit more spacing. You can see how everything now looks much better. All right, now below this avatar, open another div, and you're gonna write the following. You're gonna write a class name of min-w-0 and flex-1. Inside, I'm just gonna indent this. I'm gonna give it a class name of focus outline-none like this. And inside, I'm going to create another div, and I'm going to give it a class name of flex justify dash between items dash center and mb dash 1 like that. And inside of that, I'm going to create a paragraph. Now this paragraph is either going to render data.name, which is a group chat conversation name, but since we're not working with groups right now, you're never going to render this for now, except in the later parts of the tutorial. So if there is no data.name, we're going to use the pipe to render other user.name instead, like this. And now you can see how it says Antonio Erdeliaz and Antonio here. But if we were to create a group chat, we would primarily use the name that we named our group chat instead of a random user from that group. Great. Now let's just give this paragraph some class names. So class name, let's give it a text-md, let's give it a font of medium, and let's give it a text-gray-900 like this. Perfect. And now below this paragraph here, let's check if we have the last message. So if we have a last message dot created at, we're gonna do an end right here, and we're gonna write a paragraph right here, and we're gonna use format new date last message dot created at, and we're gonna give it a format of p like this. So basically, if there is a last message sent in this conversation, we're going to display a little time when the last message has been sent. If we save right now, we're not going to see anything because there is no last message available here. And let's just make sure to style this here. So class name to this paragraph, which will display our last message created at date, text-xs, text-gray-400 and font-light. So it's going to be a very small text here. And I just want to make sure that you can actually test this. So you don't have to do this, but I just want to show you how this will look. So I'm going to remove this for now, and I'm going to hard code this to true like this, and I'm going to save it so you see how this looks. See, we get this little text which shows us 9:38 p.m., which is my current time. So I'm just going to revert this back and make sure you do as well. use lastMessage.createdAt and lastMessage.createdAt in this new date right here. I just did that to show you how this is going to look and how it should look for you. All right. And now just below this div right here, you're going to create a paragraph inside. And this paragraph is going to render last message text like this. And in our case, that is going to be started a conversation. Why? Well, if you go back to last message text, you can see our conditions. If there is an image in the last message, we're going to show send an image. If there is a body in last message, we're going to show whatever the last message is that the user sent. If there is none of those conditions, in that case, we're just going to show started a conversation because we just started a conversation and there is no messages yet. Great. And now let's go ahead and let's style this paragraph. So class name is equal to CLSX. Again, I'm going to use backticks here. I'm going to give it a truncate. I'm going to give it text-sm. And in the second argument right here, I'm going to use has seen text-gray-500, otherwise text-black font-medium, like that. Great. And you can see how it's now a bit more compact in this conversation box right here. So if I send the message to Antonio, it's going to be written a last message here. If I have not seen this message yet, it's going to be bolded in a dark color. But if I did see it, it's going to be more of a light color to indicate like on the actual Messenger app. Perfect. And that is it for our conversation box right here. In the future, we are also going to add a dynamic difference between either showing an avatar or a group of avatars if it's a group chat. But for now, we don't have to do that. We're going to do that later in the tutorial. Great job. For if you want to check the last message, you can do what I did. So just replace this with true like this and make sure you remove this inside so you can see how that looks. And then also just don't forget to bring it back here. Great job. In the next part of the tutorial, we are going to create an actual /ID here. Right now, if I click, I get a 404. So we're going to work on this page next. I'm just going to go back so there is no error for now. Great job. So we're going to continue with the development of our messenger by creating the /conversations/ID, which are routed to when clicked on any of the conversations in the sidebar. To do that, first we have to create a page for that. So I'm going to collapse everything here. I'm going to go into the app folder, into conversations, and inside I'm going to create a new folder, square brackets, conversation ID like this. And inside I'm going to create a new file, page.tsx like that. And what I'm going to do inside is very simple. So first I'm going to write the interface for my parameters. So I'm going to write interface iparams conversation ID, a type of string like this. And then I'm going to write const conversation ID is equal to an asynchronous function, asynchronous arrow function like this. Give it params and give it params iparams type like this. Just make sure you use the capital P like this, so don't make the same typo that I did. And just open this arrow function and return like this. So very simple to start with. Great. And in here, all I'm going to do for now is I'm going to create a div and I'm just going to say conversation ID like this. And I'm going to export default conversation ID just like this. So now once I have this page, if I click on my conversation, I should no longer get a 404 view. Instead, what I'm going to get, well, we're going to see that in a second. You can see that I have this text conversation ID right here. It is not yet positioned correctly, but that is what we wanted. We just wanted to avoid having the 404 page. Great. So what we have to do now is we have to create a couple of actions, which we are going to call in this server component right here. So let's go into actions folder and let's create a file get conversation by id.ts. Great. And inside of that, we are going to import Prisma from add/app/libs/prisma like this, sorry, Prisma DB, and we are going to import current user. So import get current user from /get current user. Beautiful. All right, and now let's define this action. So const get conversation by ID is an asynchronous function which accepts conversation ID, which is a type of string like this. And I just like to put a space here. Great. And return an arrow function here and open a try and catch block. And in the catch right here, define the error as any, and all you're going to do is return null like this. Great. And now inside of this try block, what you can do is write const current user is equal to await get current user like that. So first let's check if there is no current user. So if there is no current user email like this, in that case, again, return null for the conversation ID. And now let's use Prisma to find the conversation. So const conversation is equal to await Prisma dot conversation dot find unique, and we are going to use the where query pointing to the ID, which is going to compare conversation ID, which we sent from the parameters right here. Great. And I'm also going to include users. So just write users true like this. And what you can do then is just return conversation like that. Perfect. And make sure you do export default get conversation by ID at the end right here, so you can actually import this in your project. Great. Before we move on back to our page, we have to create another action. So let's go again in the actions folder and create a new file, get messages.ts. Let's import Prisma from add/app/libs/prisma-db again, and let's write const get messages is equal to async conversation ID, which is a type of a string again. And inside we're going to open a try and catch block. Let's resolve the catch. So error is a type of any, and inside you're just going to return an empty array like this. So now let's go and do const messages is equal to await prisma.message.findMany, where conversation ID is equal to conversation ID like this, and include sender and seen like that. And you're also going to order by created at ascending like this, because when we load our messages, the newest ones by default are going to be on top. But messengers don't work like that. Messengers show the newest version on the bottom right here. So that's why we don't use descending, we use ascending like this. And all we have to do is return messages like that. And don't forget to export default get messages like this. Beautiful. And now we can safely go back into our app folder, into conversations, into conversation ID, into page right here. Perfect. And now in this page here, what we can do is call both the conversation and messages. So first let's fetch our conversation. So I'm going to write const conversation is equal await get conversation by ID, and I'm going to pass in params.conversation ID like that. And below that, I'm going to load our messages. So const messages is equal await get messages like that, and I'm also going to pass in params.conversation.id just like I did here with the conversation. Great. And now that we have that, let's first handle if there is no conversation. So if we entered an invalid ID in the URL. So if there is no conversation, what we are going to do is just return a div like that. Let's give the class name of LGPL-80 and H-full like this. And just make sure you don't make a mistake like I did here. And inside of that, create another div with the class name H-full flex-call, and just use the our pre-made empty state, which we already used a couple of times in the project like this. Great. And you can import the empty state from add/app/components empty state like this. I'm just gonna move this up so the code is a bit more prettier like this. Perfect. All right. And now I'm just going to collapse this a little bit so we can see the desktop view, because that's what we want to design now. So I'm going to give this a class name in the main return function now. I'm going to give this a class name of lg-pl-80h-full, like that. And inside of that, I'm going to create another div, which is going to wrap this conversation ID here, and give it a class name of h-full flex-call, like that. Great. And I'm just going to refresh here so everything is reflected, and you can see that now our conversation ID here has moved to this area right here. Great. Now, instead of writing conversation ID here, I'm going to create a component called header. So I'm going to write header like this. It's a self-closing tag, and I'm going to pass conversation just like this. And if we save, of course, we're going to get an error because header does not exist right now. So go into your conversations folder, conversations ID, and create a new folder called components. And inside, create a new file called header.tsx. And let's just quickly fix this error. So I'm going to define use client, and I'm going to use a shorthand to create a header component here, which is just going to say header for now. Great. I'm going to go back into conversation ID page here, and I'm going to import that header from ./components/header like this. And once I save, the error will go away. Let's just wait a couple of seconds, and there we go. We have our header here. Great. So now let's go ahead and fix this TypeScript error in the header by defining the interface. So interface header props accepts the conversation, which is a type of conversation from Prisma client. You can import it right here, and we're going to extend it a little bit because we also include the users. So I'm going to write user like this, and you can import user from Prisma client as well in this line right here. And then we can use this header props to assign it to react.fc like that. Beautiful. And I'm just going to extract that here. So conversation like that. Great job. All right, and now we can safely pass in the conversation here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to add some hooks here. So we're going to use the hook we created previously called use other user, because we want to display this user's name in the header right here. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write const other user is equal use other user, which you can import from add/app/hooks use other user like that. Great. And now that we have that, we can pass in the conversation, because that is what it takes. Great. Now inside a new variable here, I'm going to define a status text. For now, it's going to be pretty static because we don't have the functionality for active and offline and online status yet. But we're going to write a functionality which is going to be able to at least change the status for the groups, which you will see the functionality of later. So go ahead and write const status text is equal use memo. Make sure you don't forget the dependency array. And first we're going to check if the conversation is a group. So if conversation is group, in that case, we're going to return open pointy brackets and just write conversation.users.length members like that. So if we are in a group, we're not going to show the individual online or offline status. We're just going to show 5 members or 2 members or 16 members. Great. And now below this if clause, what we're going to do is we're going to return active for now. So we're going to hard code it. And what we have to pass here is conversation like this. And now we have the status text. So we hard coded active for now. Later on, this is going to be dynamic. It's going to be either active or offline, depending on our pusher subscription status. Great. And now we can go ahead and start developing this UI here. So I'm going to remove this div for now. Sorry, this text for now. I'm going to create some class names for this div. So I'm going to write bg-white w-full flex border-b 1 pixel. Below that, I'm going to write sm px-4 py-3 px-4 lg-px-6 justify dash between items dash center and shadow dash sm like that. Great. And now inside of this div, you want to open another div. You can see how our little navbar is visible here. And now inside of this div, you can give it a class name of flex gap dash 3 items dash center, just like that. All right. And now we're going to create a mobile only chevron back. So I'm going to collapse this like this, and I'm going to zoom in so we can see what's going on here. So I don't know if you can see, but I have this little navbar right here at the top. So this is where I recommend you also collapse your screen to mobile. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to see what you're doing. So go ahead and add the link component, which you can import from next /link, which I did right here. And this link component, let's do it like this for now. So where it's going to point at, the href is going to be /conversations, like that. And besides the href, we're also going to give it some classes. So I'm just going to head and collapse this, and I'm going to write some class names. So class name is going to be lg hidden block text-sky-500 hover text-sky-600 transition and cursor dash pointer like this. And inside I'm gonna use the hi chevron left from react dash icons /hi2. So there are two of them. One is from react dash icons /hi, but I'm gonna use the one from hi2. You can try yourself and see if you like one more. So let's just see where we imported this. So we have an import of hi chevron left from react dash icons /hi2 like that. Great. And I'm just going to give it a size of 32 like that. And now you can see I have this big icon on mobile screens, which serves as the back icon. But if I expand a lot, you can see that there's no need for that. So we'll only use that on mobile devices where we do not show the sidebar. Great. So for now, you can actually move your screen back to desktop view, because now we're going to develop things for desktop. Great. So below this link right here, go ahead and write the avatar component, which you can import from @app components avatar. We already used it a few times in the project. Great. It is a self-closing tag, and the user you're going to pass is other user like that, and just save the file. And in a couple of seconds, you should see the same image of this user you selected right here. Great. And now just below this avatar, create a div and give it a class name of flex-call like that. Inside, create another div, which is either going to have a conversation.name if it's a group chat, or other user.name if it is a single chat like this. Great. And below this div, create another div, and I'm going to give it some class names. So write class name, and we're going to give it text-sm font-light text-neutral -500 like that. And I'm just going to pass in the status text component, status text variable, which we define here and which we will improve a bit in the future. So status text inside of this div below the conversation.name and other user.name, and just save the file, and you can see how it says active right here. Great job. And one more thing we're going to add to the header is just below everything here. So before the last closing div right here, just add hi ellipsis horizontal, which you can import from react dash icons /hi2. So the same one you imported hi chevron with. Great. And it is going to be a self-closing tag like this, and let's just go ahead and give it some properties. So size is going to be 32. It's going to have an on-click, which for now is just going to be an empty function. Later it's going to open a profile drawer, and class name is going to be text whoops, let me just enter. So text-sky-500 cursor-pointer hover text-sky-600 and transition like that. Great. And now we have this little menu item right there, and it's also visible on mobile, but on mobile we also have this chevron back icon. Great. I really like how this looks. So for now, that's gonna be it for our header component. Let's go back into the page component of conversation ID right here, and let's add another component here called body like this. For now, let's just go ahead and fix the error which it is going to give us because body does not exist right now. So the same way we added header, just go ahead in your components and create a new file, body.tsx, like this. And all you're gonna do is mark it as use client and a very simple fix. So just body and return a div which says body like that. And then you can go back into the page.tsx of the conversation ID and just import it from ./components/body like you did with the header and save your file, and the error should go away. Just wait a couple of seconds for hot reload to work, and there we go. We have our body. Now I'm gonna go inside the body again, and we're not gonna do too much here for now because we don't have the functionality. We don't have any messages yet, so there's no point in writing all of that code to render messages we cannot even see. So all I'm going to do for now is I'm going to write a class name here, flex-1 overflow-y-auto like that, and save the file. And that is going to be it for our body component for now. And then you can go back into page.tsx and we're going to create a form component which we are going to use to create messages. So just below your body element right here, you're going to go ahead and write form just like this. And again, we're going to get an error, so let's just quickly fix that by adding a new file, form.tsx inside, mark it as used client, and let's just fix the error. So form and return a div which says form like that. And then just go back in your page and import form the same way you imported header and body. Great. And now that we have the form, we can actually go inside. Just wait for this to fix. All right. And we have the form right here at the bottom of the screen, if you can see. Great. Now let's go into this form and let's start developing inside. So first thing we're going to add is we're going to extract the conversation ID from use conversation. Then we're going to make use of use form hook, which we already did in the login and register screen. So write const is equal to use form, which you can import from react-hook-form right here, and give it a value of field values like that, which you can also import from use form. So I'm just going to collapse this because we're going to have a bunch of these items here. So field values, and just open this and return an object inside with the default values, message, empty like that. And what we are going to extract is register, handle submit, set value, and form state, and just extract errors like this. So that's all we're gonna need from this use form right here. And now we're gonna write our onSubmit function here. So const onSubmit is gonna be a submit handler, which you can import from React hook form as well. So right here, submit handler, and it's also going to accept field values, which we already have imported. It's going to be a function which accepts the data as a parameter and just returns an arrow function where we are going to set post this to our API, which does not exist yet, but this is what it's going to look like. So Axios, which you can import from Axios right here, dot post, and it's going to point to /API/messages with the body of ... data, and we're also going to pass in conversation ID like that. You can also use a shorthand if you want, like this. Great. So we are going to spread the data, which is only going to hold our message for now, but we are also going to add conversation ID, which we get using this use conversation hook right here. And basically what this is going to extract is this URL right here at the top. Great. Now that we have that, what I also want to do is I want to use this set value to reset the message back to nothing. And we are also going to use should validate true like this. So it re-renders this component. So once we click submit, I just want to clear our message input, which we will have right here at the bottom. So that's why we have this line right here. Great. And now let's go into our return function and let's start styling this. So let's give this a couple of class names. So we're going to give it the class name of py4 px-4 bg-white border-t flex items-center gap-2 lg gap-4 and w-full. Great, so now you can see how at the bottom you have a nice little separator at the top, which is top border, which clearly separates this from the body element right here. Great. Now inside of that, first thing I'm going to add here is hi photo, which you can import from react-icons/hi2, and it's going to be a self-closing tag like this. And I imported it right here from react-icons/hi2 like that. Great. And I'm also going to give this a size of 30 like that, and a class name of text-sky-500 like this. Great. And now I have this little photo image right here, and you can also check out how it looks on mobile. So it works exactly the same way. Great. So now that I have this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open a form element here. And inside this form element, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write on submit, which is basically going to call handle submit, which we exported, so we destructured here from use form, and our handle submit is going to wrap our custom on submit right here in the parentheses, and then this handle submit is going to provide our custom on submit with this data which is controlled from here in the default values, which is exactly what we want. That's how we use React hook form. And let's give this a class name of flex items-center gap-2 lg gap-4 and w-full like that. All right, and now inside of this form we're going to create another component called message input like this, and I'm going to save this, and we should get an error for that. But before we start working on this, I just want to pass in all the attributes which we are going to need here. So make sure you pass an ID of message, make sure you add register, which we destructured from our use form right here. Great, so ID of message, the same thing we added here, all right, and register errors required, and placeholder, which is going to say write a message like that. Great. Now let's go and create this message input component. So I'm going to go here in conversations, conversation ID components, and what I'm going to do is create a new file, message input.tsx like that. Great. Let's mark this as use client, and let's just fix the error quickly. So message input div message input like that. Go back into your form.tsx in the conversation ID components right here, and just import this from /message input like this. And once you save the file, the error should go away once the website hop reloads. Great. And you can see how it says message input right here in my footer here. Great. I'm going to go back into message input now, and first I'm going to define the props for this. So interface message input props are going to be a placeholder, which is an optional string, ID, which is a required string, type, which is an optional string, required, which is an optional boolean, register, which is use form register, which you can import from React hook form like I did right here, and open pointy brackets and just write field values, which you can import also from React hook form here. Great. And errors, which are field errors like that. Great. Now that we have that, let's just assign all of those here. So message input props like that. And you can go ahead and extract all of those here. So type, required, register, and errors like that. All right. Now at this top div, first thing you want to do is give the class name of relative w-full like that. And instead of this text, we're going to render an input component, which is a self-closing tag here. We're going to pass in an ID of ID, type of type, autocomplete of ID. We're going to spread the register. First argument is going to be ID, and second is going to be an object which accepts required like that. So this is a shorthand for required, which is going to be true or false since it is a boolean. So we can just write it like this, required. And placeholder, which is a placeholder. And now let's actually style this by giving it some class names. Like this. So I'm going to give it a text-black. I'm going to give it a font-light. I'm going to give it a py-2, px-4, bg-neutral-100, w-full, rounded-full, and on focus, I'm going to give it outline-none like this. Great. And if you take a look now, I'm going to use mobile so you can see better. So you can see we have this nice little input here, which is exactly which looks very similar to the Messenger, the actual Facebook Messenger. Great. And this is where we can actually type our message now. Great. We are done with the message input here, and we can go back into our form.tsx. Great. So inside of this form, just below the message input, we're going to create a button element like this. We're going to give it a type of submit. So this button is going to trigger this form on submit. So make sure that your button is inside of this form or just below this message input. Great. And we're going to give it a class name of the following. So it's going to have rounded-full, p-2, bg-sky-500, cursor-pointer, hover, bg-sky-600, and transition like that. Great. And inside of the button, we're going to have an icon hi paper plane. Sorry, paper airplane. And you can either import it from hi or hi2. I'm going to use hi2 because I like those icons better. So let me just confirm that. Yes. So import hr paper airplane and hi photo from react-icons/hi2. Great. And let's just add some final attributes to this button. So size is going to be 18 and class name is going to be text-white like that. And now if you take a look, you can see how we have a nice little arrow here. So I'm just going to zoom in a bit so you can see we have an image which is going to trigger Cloudinary in the future. We have a message and we have a submit button right here. Great job. And now we can actually go ahead and try. If I click on network right here. So if you try on empty, nothing is going to happen because we set in our form that our input right here is required. So if I send test and click here, you can see that we are trying to reach our API messages, but that does not exist. But this is a good thing because it does exactly what we wanted to do. It cleared the input, and in the payload, it sent the conversation ID and the message test, which is exactly what we want. So we are now ready to create the endpoint, which is going to create the messages for our messenger. Great job. So I'm just going to align this. Great. So let's continue and let's create the route which is going to create our messages. So I'm going to collapse everything here. I'm going to expand this a little bit, and I'm going to go into my app folder, into API, and I'm going to create a new folder called messages. And inside messages, I'm going to create a new file, route.ts. like that. Inside this route, I'm going to export a synchronous function post, which is going to accept request of type request to the parameter. Great. Inside, I'm going to open a try and catch block. I'm going to resolve this error. So the error type is any. I'm going to console log. I recommend you do this in every post route. So I'm going to write error and I'm going to say error messages like this. So when I'm debugging my application, I know that this is where the error is coming from. And all I'm going to do is return new next response internal error with a status of 500, and just make sure you import next response from next/server like that. Great. And now let's go ahead and let's get our current user in this try block. So const current user is equal to await get current user like that. Below that, make sure you import get current user from @app/actions get current user. Below that, we're going to parse our body. So const body is equal await request.json like that. And now let's just extract all the values we need from our body like this. So we're going to destruct message, image, and conversation ID. Right now we know that we send message because that's what we do in our form right here, which we just tested, but we will also be able to send an image once we set up a Cloudinary. And you also know that we send conversation ID, which is this part of the URL at the end right here. Great. So first let's check if any of these are missing, specifically current user. So if there is no current user $ID, or if there is no current user $email, in that case we're going to return new next response unauthorized with a status of 401 like this. Great. And now let's go ahead and let's create a new message. So const new message is equal to await Prisma. Just don't make a mistake when you write Prisma like this, because right now it's not throwing any errors, but that is only because we declared it globally. Every time you use Prisma like this, you have to import it. So just go here to the top and import Prisma from add/app/libs/prisma db like that. Otherwise, if you don't import it, it's going to work locally without import, but in production, in deployment, it's going to break. So make sure you import your Prisma where you use it. So what we're going to do here is prisma.message.create. And first things first, let's give it a data of body, which is going to be our message. Let's give it image, which is going to be our image if it exists. Conversation. We are going to just give it a connect command, and inside this connect command we're going to write ID conversation ID like that. Great. For the sender, we're going to do a similar thing. We're going to connect it by ID using the current user.id. And for the scene, since we are the one who sent the message, we can automatically push us in the array of these scene users. So I'm just going to write connect again ID current user.id. So the person who has seen this message immediately is the person who sent it. So we connected the current user as our sender, and we connected it as one of the persons who saw the message. And we connected the conversation using conversation ID. Great. And just below this data, let's also write include scene true. So we want to populate this array of scene users, and sender true as well. Great. And now that we have that, I'm also going to update our conversation with this new message right here. So I'm going to write const updated conversation is equal to await prisma.conversation.update. I'm going to use the where query to find the conversation by ID using the conversation ID parameter from our body. And I'm going to give it a data of last message at. So since we sent the new message into this conversation, we're going to update the last message at field because that is by how we order our conversations. So I'm just going to write new date here. And now I'm going to connect the messages. So I'm just going to write messages, connect, ID, new message dot ID like that. Great. And just below this data, I'm also going to include users true, and I'm also going to include messages here, include seen true like that. So we don't need to include users, we just need to include seen here. Right now, we are not going to return this updated conversation, but we are going to use this updated conversation once we add pushers. So that's why I wrote it like this. So for now, we are not going to send it back to the user. We're just going to leave it like this. But it's we still have to update it. We have to connect the message and we have to update the last message at. So it's a good thing we did this already, even without pusher. But we could have done it just like this. But since we're going to need it in the future, I already prepared this updated conversation, which we are then going to send to all of our active users in order to give them real-time update about their current conversation in the sidebar. So that's why I prepared that here. But we are not going to return it now. What we are going to return in this API is return next response.json, and we are going to send new message inside. So we are going to leave this updated conversation alone for now, and we are going to use this new message right here. Great. So make sure you save this file, and let's go back here. I'm going to open my network again right here. All right, and I'm going to test sending my message. So I'm going to write test. I'm going to click send. And if I look at my response, you can see that I have successfully created a message here. Great. And you can confirm that by going in your MongoDB. You can see that I don't have any messages, but if I refresh after I've added a message now, I have a message right here, and you can see I immediately have seen IDs because I seen the message, and it's the exact same ID for the sender ID because I'm the creator of that message. Great job. And now that we have our first message, we can actually start and render some messages. But before we do that, we're also going to learn how to enable Cloudinary for this so we can send images. So we are going to continue, and we are going to create our Cloudinary account and set up the actual action to this little message box in our submit form. So first, I have the next Cloudinary page opened in this browser here, and we're going to go ahead and open our terminal. I'm going to close everything for now, and I'm going to go and install next-Cloudinary. So npm install next-Cloudinary like that, and just press enter and wait a couple of seconds for this to install. Great. After this has been installed, you can go ahead and run npm run dev again, and just make sure you refresh your page after you've done this so everything is reflected. I'm going to close the terminal for now, and I'm going to go into my .environment file, and inside I'm going to add next_public_ Cloudinary cloud name like this. Or you can go to next Cloudinary and just copy this right here. And what we're going to fill here, well, for that we have to create a Cloudinary account. So go into Google and write Cloudinary and select the first link right here. Go and find a way to log in. So I'm here in the mobile view. I'm going to use Google to log in. You can choose anything of your choice. And once you're inside, you're going to see your API key, your cloud name, and a bunch of other useful stuff. So I'm just going to expand this a little bit so you have the desktop view the same as I do. So you can find your next public Cloudinary cloud name right here in this cloud name option here. So I'm just going to click copy here, and I'm going to paste it right here. Great. And that's it for this next Cloudinary setup right here. What I want you to do next is we're going to go back into our localhost, but keep this page open because you're also going to need to create an upload preset. And I'm going to show you what that is in a moment, but I just want us to complete this part for now. So let's go back on localhost here, and let's go back into our form component, which is located in conversations folder, conversation ID, into components right here. So I'm going to go right here, and where we added this HI photo, we're gonna modify it a little bit by wrapping it in CLD upload button, which you can now import from next-cloudinary, a new package that we just installed, and you can wrap this HI photo inside of that. So just make sure you import the CLD upload button from next-cloudinary like that. All right, and now I'm gonna add some options here. So I'm gonna give it options. Max files is going to be 1 on upload. For now, just give it an empty function. And now we have to assign the upload preset. So upload preset for now is an empty string, and I'm gonna show you how you can create your upload preset to make this work. So go back into Cloudinary. And if you can see right here at the bottom in the lower left corner, you can find your settings. So go ahead and click on this, wait for a couple of seconds for this to load, and now in this sidebar select upload. And yeah, I probably have a bunch of these upload presets which you do not have because I tested this before. You're probably only gonna have one or maybe not a single one, but all you have to do is click on this add upload preset option right here and make sure you select unsigned option right here and just click save like that. And after that has been created, you're gonna have it right here. Make sure it says mode unsigned and just go ahead and copy it like that. And then you can use that and assign it as an upload preset right here. Great. And before we just move on, what I want to do is I want to create a function which is going to upload this. So let's go ahead and let's create a function called const handle upload like this. The result is going to be a type of any, and what we're going to do is we are going to call axios.post /API/messages. So the same way we did with onSubmit, but this is going to be standalone away from our React hook form. And for the body, we're going to pass an image of a result (.info) (.secure) _URL like this. And don't forget to also pass the conversation ID like that. So result (info) (secure) _URL like that. And then you can use the handle upload here and assign it right here. Great. I'm going to expand this into desktop view and I'm going to refresh this. And one cool thing you can see is that we have the latest message, if you've sent this, right here in my conversation box. So it changed from start of the conversation. That is really cool, but it will only happen once you refresh for now since we are not real time. So let's go ahead and let's click on this now. And as you can see, it opens our Cloudinary file selection tool. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select a file from here. So I'm going to find something like this. I'm going to upload it, and there we go. Nothing has happened yet, but if you go back and refresh your messages, you should find a message which has an image which points to res.cloudinary here. Great job. And if I refresh here, actually, in our newest conversation box, you should see a message which says send an image, just like that. Great job. So our form is officially complete and we can now go ahead and create the actual body where we are going to render our messages. So let's continue and let's create our body element that actually works. So I'm going to expand this a little bit and I'm going to close everything for now, and I'm going to go back into app, into conversation ID, components, into body right here, and I'm also going to open page.tsx right here. The reason I want to open page.tsx is because we are going to pass something through the body, and that is going to be messages. So we're going to go ahead and pass initial messages, and we're going to pass messages here like that. So it's going to be the same way as initial items in the in our conversation list. This will only serve to load when user loads the page, but every additional message is actually going to be dynamically added using pusher once we get to that. Great. So now let's go back into body and let's actually create an interface for this. So I'm going to write interface body props initial messages, and it's going to be a type of full message type, which you can import from @/app/types, and make sure you put a little array at the end like that. And now let's use React FC to assign this to the body component. And now if you look at our page.tsx, you can see that the error is gone and body can successfully accept these messages right here. Great. And now let's destructure these messages here. Sorry, it's initial messages like that. And what we're going to do now is we're going to create a state. So messages set messages is equal to use state from React, which you can import right here. And the initial value is going to be initial messages, just like this. And I'm also going to create a bottom ref, which will have no function for now, but later is going to serve that when we get a new message, we scroll down, even if the user is all the way up or a lot of new messages have come. So it provides a better user experience. So go ahead and write const bottom ref is equal to use ref, which you can import from React right here, open pointy brackets and write HTML div element like that, and just give it the default value of null like this. All right. And now I'm also going to use the use conversation to extract the conversation ID. So const use conversation, which you can import from @app/hooks/use conversation, and make sure you extract the conversation ID. Great. And now inside of this body, first we're going to replace this with a bottom div, so it can be a self-closing tag because it serves no purpose but for us later to scroll down to this element. So I'm just going to give it a ref of bottom ref and a class name of pt-24 because we want to create some space where we can scroll. All right. And now above this bottom ref, we're going to create an iteration of our messages. And so we're going to do messages.map message and then index here. And we're going to immediately return message box like this. Of course, this does not exist yet, so if you save, you're going to get an error. But before we start working inside, first let's define some props which we are going to send here. So isLast is going to be a comparison to our index identical to messages.length -1. So that's how we are going to know if the current message is the last message. Key is going to be message.id and data is going to be message like that. And of course, if you save, you're going to get an error. And don't worry that we don't use the conversation ID. I just prepared it for when we add pusher and other real-time stuff here. All right. And now let's go back into these components where we have the body, form, and header, and let's create a message box.tsx component. Great. Let's mark it as use client, and let's just quickly fix the error. So message box like that, go back into body and just import that from /message box like this. I'm just gonna reorder my types a bit. Okay, I'm going to save this, and after I refresh, the errors should go away. And there we go, I have 2 messages right here because that's how many I've sent. If I send a third message here, so I'm just gonna name it third message, nothing is going to happen immediately, but after I refresh, I should get loaded with 3 messages right here. Great. So if this is not happening to you, please confirm that you're actually having new messages added in your database right here. So how many times you've entered in this form should be how many times you have seen it in this database right here. If the database is okay, but this is still not showing, that means that in your page, you have something wrong in your get messages function right here. But if you follow along, everything should be just fine. So let's go back in our message box right here. And let's define the interface for this. So interface message box props is going to have a data, which is a type of full message type, which you can import from add/app/types like this. We're going to have is last, which is an optional boolean like that. And let's just assign this using React FC message box props like that. And then you can extract data and is last like that. I'm just gonna collapse this a little bit just in case some of you are confused. Why am I having a mobile view here? Great. What we will do next is we're going to get our session here using a hook. So const session is equal use session, which you can import from next-out/react like that. Great. Now I'm gonna write a couple of conditional variables here, which we will use to recognize whether the message is our own message, is it the other user's message, should we display that this message has been seen by someone, and stuff like that. So const is own is going to be session $data $user $email is equal to data $sender $email like that. So basically what we are doing here is we are comparing the current session email with the email of the sender of that message. How do we get this email from the sender? Well, that is in the get messages because we populated the sender. So the sender is not going to be a random ID. It's actually going to be a complete user model, which you can also check in this full message type. As you can see, sender is a user model. So that's how we know it should have an email type here. And that's how we are going to compare the isOwn variable. All right. The next thing we're going to do is create a seen list. So we're going to create a list of all the users that have seen this message, and we're going to turn it into a text that we can immediately render. So const seen list is equal open parentheses data.seen pipe empty array. So we add the empty array here just to prevent a chance that this .seen is undefined. So because if we try to do .map or .filter on undefined, JavaScript is going to throw an error. But by doing this, we kind of protected that because it's going to use this empty array if this is undefined. Great. So you can write all of this in one line if you want to, but I'm just going to press enter so it's simpler for the tutorial. I'm going to click filter here. I'm going to select the user and I'm going to write user.email is not equal to data $sender $email like that. And then we're going to go through map user and I'm going to return each user name and I'm going to join all of that using a comma and a space inside of a string. Great. So basically what we are doing here is we are filtering through this data.seen and we are removing the sender user from the list of people who have seen the message, because it makes no sense to display seen by Antonio if Antonio is the person who sent that message, right? So that's why we filter that out. But in our database, of course, we keep info that we have seen our message. And then we just map over that filtered array and we return the name of each user. So we work with array of strings and then we can use that array of strings and just map .join and create an array. So this is going to produce something like Antonio, Mark, John, for example, if 3 users are inside of the seen object. Great. So we have that now, and what we're going to do now is we're going to create a couple of classes here. All of them are going to be very dynamic, so I would rather keep them in variables than directly write them here. So let's do that. I'm going to write const container, and it's going to be CLSX, which you can import from CLSX right here. And the first value I'm going to give here is flex gap-3p-4. And the second one is going to be a conditional, is own and end justify-end like this. Great. For the second one, I'm going to have an avatar. So const avatar, again, is going to be CLSX, and it's only going to be conditional. So is own and end order-2 like that. Below that, we're going to have a class for body. So const body is going to be CLSX. In the first parameter, I'm going to send flex-call gap-2. And in the second one, I'm going to give a conditional is own and then items-end like this. And the last one is going to be the message class. So const message is going to be CLSX again. And the first argument is going to be text-sm w-fit overflow-hidden like that. The second argument is going to be dynamic is own like this, bg-sky-500 text-white. Otherwise, it's going to be bg-gray-100 like that. And the third argument is going to modify the message class if the message is an image. So data.image rounded-nd and p-0, otherwise rounded-full py-2 px-3 like that. Perfect. So we have prepared all of these dynamic classes. I think it's cleaner to keep them in variables since there are so many of dynamic ones. Usually we only have one or two, but almost every single one here is dynamic. Great. So let's go right here, and instead of displaying message here in this first div, we're going to give it a class name, and we're just going to assign container like this. So just this container here like that. Great. And now inside, we're going to use a div and give it a class name of avatar. So make sure you don't put this in a string, because this is using this variable which we define right here. And inside, we're going to use an avatar component which you can import from add/app/components/avatar like that. And the user you're going to send inside is data, make sure you use curly brackets, is data.sender like that. Great. And outside of here, as you can see that I send these messages, so they are on the right side of the body. That's exactly what we want. And now outside of this div, which wraps the avatar, you're going to create another div and give it a class name of body. So again, it's this one which we defined right here. Great. And let's give it a div of class name flex items-center and gap-1. And inside, we're going to create another div with the class name text-sn text-gray-500 like that. And just write data.sender.name like that. Great. And now you can see that my name is right here next to my image. Great. And now just below this data sender name, we're going to add another div right here, the class name of text-xs text-gray-400. And inside, we're going to use format, which you can import from date-fns. So I'm going to do that right here. I'm going to import format from date-fns like this. And what I'm going to format is the created at of this message. So I'm going to use new date, data.created at, and we're going to pass in p as a second argument of this format. Make sure you don't accidentally do this like this, because this is not going to work. So inside a new date parenthesis, you only pass data.currentAt, and then you add a comma and you pass a lowercase p. So uppercase and lowercase are not the same thing in format. Those are different formattings. So make sure you just pass in the lowercase p like that. And if you save the file, you can see that now I have the time when this has been sent and the minute. Great. That's exactly what we want. Now what you're going to do is go just outside of this div right here, and you're going to create another div and give it a class name of message. Again, make sure you don't accidentally put this in a string, so that is using this variable which we created right here. Great. And now we're going to create, you can see how we have a nice little blue background here, but this one does not have it. That is because for the second message I've sent an image, so our code is working as expected. Great, so first let's render an image if possible. So I'm going to use data.image question mark, I'm going to open parentheses, and I'm going to render image from next/image. So just make sure you import image from next/image here. Great. I'm going to close this. It's a self-closing tag. I'm going to give it an alt of image. I'm going to give it a height of 288. I'm going to give it a width of 288 as well, like that. I'm going to give it a source of data.image, and I'm going to give it a class name of object-cover, cursor-pointer, hover, scale 110, transition, and translate, like that. And before we save, we also have to create an alternative to this shorthand if clause. So just write like this, open parentheses again, and just write a very simple div in which you will render data.body and just close the div like that. And now you can save. I'm just going to wait a couple of seconds, and there we go. So you can see I have the image. It has a little effect once I hover, and you can see that the messages are clearly visible. Amazing, amazing job. You're doing a great job so far. What I want to mention, if you got an error during this, especially showing a Cloudinary error, just make sure that in your next config.js, you have configured res.cloudinary.com inside your images, inside your domains array. If you don't have res Cloudinary, for example, I'm going to remove it now, and I'm going to purposely wait a couple of seconds for all of this to reload, and you're going to see the kind of error I get. I just want to show you this in case you get the same error, so you know how to fix it. So there we go, this is what the error looks like. So it tells you that hostname res.cloudinary.com is not configured. So just make sure that you have res.cloudinary, avatars.github user content, and lh3 Google user content. Otherwise, you're gonna get errors in the messages. So just go ahead and save this if you haven't, refresh your page, and everything should be working just fine. So before we wrap up our work on the body, I just want to note that later we will also add a model which will open on click of any image. Right now we're not going to do that because we are wrapping everything up first. And what I want to do next is I want to go back into body right here. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to expand this just a little bit. I'm going to add a use effect, which you can import from React. Just make sure you put the dependency array here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a call, an Axios call to a route that we're going to create now. So Axios.post. Also make sure you import Axios from Axios like I did right here. So just make sure you do Axios.post and use backticks for this /API/conversations/conversation ID/scene. Like this. So every time that we open this body component, or when this exact page loads, we are going to send a post route to scene the last message. And if you're wondering, well, how will that work when new messages are coming to us? Don't worry, we're gonna handle that with Pusher. So all you have to do now in this dependency array is conversation ID right here. Great. And now let's go ahead and let's create this route right here. So I'm gonna go open my sidebar here. I'm gonna go into API. We got an error here. We got a 404 because this use effect route does not exist yet. So that's completely fine. So I'm gonna go in API, in conversations right here, and I'm gonna create a new folder inside, open square brackets, conversation ID like that. And then inside, I'm gonna create a new folder called scene. And inside of that, I'm going to create a new file, route.ts, like that. And what I'm going to do inside is first I'm going to define the interface. So interface iparams like this is going to be a conversation ID !, string like that. And then we can do export asynchronous function post, which is going to accept request, which is a type of request, and it's also going to accept a second parameter, which we will immediately destruct into parameters. So params like this, and just map it to params, iparams like that. Important thing to note, make sure that this is the second argument. You cannot do it like this. This is not going to work. Make sure that your parameters are a second argument here. Great. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open a try and catch block here. So go ahead and open try, catch, error, which is a type of any right here. And what we are going to do in the error is we're going to console log, because it's a good practice to do. We're going to write the error and we're going to say error messages seen like this. So you know when you're debugging, if you have an error in your console, this is where it's happening. And we're going to return new next response, which you can import from next/server like here. And we're going to write internal error. And we're just going to send a status of 500 like this. Great. Now let's go back into our try and let's first fetch our current user. So const current user is equal to await get current user, which you can get from app actions get current user like that. Great. Now let's extract the conversation ID from our parameters like that. Great. And what we're going to write here is we're going to check if we have the current user. So if there is no current user $ID, or if there is no current user email, we are going to return new next response unauthorized with a status of 401 like that. Great. If everything is okay with our current user, first we're going to find the existing conversation like this. So we're gonna write conversation is equal to await Prisma. Again, don't make a mistake just because there is no error here, because your production is not going to work. Make sure you do import Prisma from act/app/lib/prisma db like that. And now everything is fine. And go back here where we wrote find the existing conversation and write await.prisma.conversation.find unique. And we're going to use the where query to find by ID using our conversation ID from the parameters like that. And what you want to include here is messages, open an object and write include again, seen true like this. And besides messages, you also want to include users. So just write users true as well. Great. And I'm going to put a semicolon here. And now we're going to check if we successfully fetched this conversation. So if there is no conversation, you can just use this. So if there is no conversation, you're going to return a new next response invalid ID status 400. Not 4,000, but 400 like that. Great. And now what we're going to do is we're going to find the last message using this existing conversation right here. So how are we going to do that? We're going to write const last message is equal to conversation dot messages. We're going to open an array here. Well, it's not really an array, it's just a way to access this array right here. So we're gonna write conversation.messages.length -1. So that is how we are going to select the last message from this conversation that we have. Great. And now that we have the last message, well, first let's confirm that we have the last message. So if there is no last message, we can just return next response.json and just return the conversation like that. Great. And if we do have the last message, in that case, we're going to update scene of last message. Great. So let's go ahead and write const updated message is equal to await prisma.messages.update where ID is equal to last message.id. And instead of prisma.messages, make sure you write prisma.message like this. And for the where, use the ID last message.id. Great. For the include, you're going to write sender true and seen true like this. And for the data, you're going to pass in seen object connect, open an object again, and write ID current user .id like that. Perfect. And all you're going to do is return next response.json updated message like that. Great. So what do we actually do here? Why did we just not create a route which simply has the last message ID inside of it? Well, that's because we prepared this route for pusher later on. Because we have the conversation here and the last message, and the updated message is going to be much easier for us to propagate through all of the channels where we will be subscribed to. It will make more sense in the future. But to explain what we did, so basically we used the conversation ID to find the last message in that conversation, and then we used Prisma message update, and we used the query lastMessage.id, and we connected our current user to the array of seen objects inside that message. Great job. So now I'm just gonna collapse this a bit, and I'm gonna refresh here again just to confirm that we do no longer get an error. Great, we no longer get an error. And now I just want to test something. If you see this jumping up and left and right, that's because the session has not exactly loaded yet. So what I want to do now is I'm going to select a random person from here, for example, this Antonio, and I'm going to say test scene message here. And I'm just going to press enter to send this message. Nothing's going to happen. I have to manually refresh because remember, we don't have pusher yet. Great. So it says that I sent this message, but I cannot see whether this user has seen that message. So I'm going to go and I'm going to log out, and I'm going to enter this Antonio user, and I'm going to just open the message and see if then I'm able to see it. Okay, let's just wait a second for our logout to work. Oh, we have a small bug here. Let me just see if I can manually go here. I can. Okay, I'm gonna check out what it was. Perhaps it was just cache, because I think the code is okay. So I'm gonna write antonio@mail.com. I'm going to enter here. I'm gonna wait a couple of seconds to see if I will be redirected back. Yes, I will. All right. I'm gonna go into my conversations here. Next 13 in development is a bit slow. Great, so I have this test scene message, and I'm going to click here now. And now I'm going to refresh here just to double check that I definitely seen this message. And great, so I can see that a person called New has sent me this message, and I can see that it's no longer in a bold font here. That means that I've seen it. So I'm just gonna log out again. I'm going to confirm whether this is a bug with logout or just some weird cache. I'm not sure why it's returning me like that. And I'm going to go back into new right here to see if our scene text is working. So I'm going to go into my conversations here. I'm going to click here. All right, it's not showing our user. I'm just going to check why that is happening. Alright, so the reason this is happening is because we did not add the code which actually uses our scene by. So good thing I caught this. So I'm just gonna collapse this a little bit here, and we're gonna go back into a message box right here, and we're gonna go just below this div right here, and I'm gonna open a conditional here, and I'm gonna write is last and end is own and scene list.length is bigger than 0, and just write and again, and open parentheses and open a div like this, and inside you're gonna write use backticks for this and just write scene by scene list like this. And we're gonna give this div a couple of class names. So I'm just gonna write class name text-xs. So you can see we have this huge text seen by Antonio here. Text-xs, font-light, and text-gray-500 like this. Let's just wait for hot reload to work. And there we go. You can see that because I logged out and I went into my Antonio account and I opened this message, I can now see this function seen by Antonio. Great job. So before we move on, I just want to fix this issue we have with logging out while we are on the /conversations screen. This happens because in the middleware that we use for non-authenticated pages, we only added /users but not /conversations. So in order to fix that, go back, I'm gonna close everything so it's clearer for you, and go back into your middleware.ts right here, and you can see that we only protect the /users route. So go ahead and add a comma here and just write /conversations/path like this. And this is going to protect you from logging out during the if you're on the conversation screen. So I'm gonna open Antonio, for example. Just let's wait a couple of seconds for this to load, and then I'm gonna try and log out from that screen. Alright, so it loaded right here, and I'm gonna try and log out now. And after a couple of seconds, there we go. We are redirected back to the logging screen like this. Great. So I'm just gonna log in back as Antonio here. And in my code editor, I'm gonna go back into app, conversations, conversation ID, components folder, and I'm going to select header like this. And inside of this header, what I'm going to do is I'm gonna add a state which is going to control this button that we have right here in the corner. Let's just wait a couple of seconds for this to load. If you remember, we added a horizontal dots icon, which will serve as a button to open our model. So write this in the corner, if you can see, write this 3 dots right here. So we're gonna turn that into a button, which is going to open a drawer here on the side, so we can see more information about our conversation and also to be able to delete it. So let's start right here in the header, and let's just add a state, const drawer open and set drawer open like this from use state, which you can import from React, and let's just give it a default of false. So I imported use state from React right here, the same way we did with use memo. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this entire return function, so this entire div inside my header, in a fragment like this. And I'm just going to indent the entire div, and I'm going to expand it so you can see what I'm actually working with. So we already written this, and I just wrapped it into a fragment. The reason I wrapped it into a fragment, because above this div, to be semantically correct, I'm going to add a profile drawer like this. It is a self-closing tab. We're going to create it in a moment. I'm going to give it the data of conversation. I'm going to give it an isOpen value of drawer open from the state that we just created, and on close is going to be an arrow function which calls set drawer open and sets it to false like this. And if you save, you're going to get an error because profile drawer does not exist. Now let's just quickly fix this error by going back into components in our /conversation ID folder right here and create a new file, profile drawer.tsx like that. I'm going to mark it as use client, and I'm just going to quickly fix this error. So I will write profile drawer like this, and we're just going to return a div profile drawer like that. And I'm going to go back into my header component where I added this, and I'm just going to import it. It's in the same folder, so it's very easy to import like that. Great. And now that we have this, I'm going to go back into my profile drawer, and I'm going to create an interface. So go back into profile drawer right here and create an interface, profile drawer props like that. And let's give it a prop is open, which is a boolean. Let's give it an onClose function, which is a simple void function, and a data, which is going to be a type of conversation. which you can import from Prisma/client, and we're going to extend it by also adding users, which is a type of user, which you can also import from Prisma client. And remember to put an array at the end of this user, because users is an array of users. And now what you can do is just run react-fc right here and give it a type of profile drawer props, and then you can safely extract is open, on close, and data like this. Now to continue in the profile drawer, we are going to install headless UI, which we will use to create a semantically correct drawer as well as our models in the future. So go into your terminal right here. I'm going to shut down the application, and I'm going to write, I'm going to expand this so you can see what I'm writing. I'm going to write npm install @headless UI/react. And I'm going to press enter and just wait a couple of seconds for this to install. After it's been installed, you can go ahead and run npm run dev again. All right, and I'm just going to refresh my page here so I know that my application is up to date after I've shut down my application and run it again. And great, and now let's go ahead and let's start developing this drawer. So first let's add some functions here. So const other user from use other user. You can import that from add/app/hooks/use other user like I did right here, and the parameter is going to accept is data, which is of course a type of conversation like this. And now that we have that, let's create a value for our joined date, since when we click on this button right here, we want to show some information about this conversation, and we're going to show when the user joined Messenger. So const joined date is going to be a type of use memo, which you can import from React. Don't forget to put the dependency array at the end, and all we're going to do is return format. And you can import format from date-fns. Just go to the top right here and import format from date/-fns like this. And now that we have this format, open parentheses and write new date other user dot created at like this, and the format is going to be capital PP like this. So make sure you don't use lowercase, it's double P capital like that. And in the dependency array, you have to give it a other user dot created at like that. Great. And now that we have that, let's also create our title. So const title is also going to be a use memo. Don't forget the dependency array, and inside all we're going to do is return data.name. So either the conversation name if it's a group chat, or other user.name, the same way we did in the header and in this conversation box right here. And the dependency array needs to take in data.name and other user.name like that. And last thing we're going to do is we're going to create a status text variable. So const status text, the same way we did with header, use memo. Don't forget the dependency array like that. And we're going to check if data is a group. In that case, we're going to return the same thing we did in the header. So open backticks and write data.users.length members like that. So it's going to display 5 members or 6 members or 100 members. Otherwise, we're just going to return hard-coded active for now, and later in the tutorial we're going to change this into either offline or active depending on the pusher subscription. And in this dependency array, just pass in the data like that. Great. And now we can go ahead and start developing this UI right here. So instead of this div, we're going to have a transition, which you can import from @headlessUI/react, like I did right here. And it's going to be transition.root like this. And we're going to give it some props. So we're going to give it a show, which is a type of is open. And we're going to give it as, which is a type of fragment like this. And fragment is imported from React. So just make sure you do that. So also import fragment alongside use memo from React like this. Great. And now that we have the transition root, we're going to use another component from Headless UI called dialog. You can also import dialog from Headless UI. So just go ahead and add the dialog as well. Go ahead and let's give it some attributes. So as div class name is going to be a relative z-50 and on close like this. Great. Now inside of this dialog, we're gonna open another transition. So I'm gonna write transition.child. We already have transition imported, so we can safely do this. Transition.child like this. And let's give this some props. So as fragment again, and let's give it some animations. So on enter, it's going to have an ease out duration dash 500. On enter from, it's going to have opacity 0. On enter to, it's going to have opacity dash 100. On leave, we're going to give it an ease in animation with duration of 500 milliseconds. Leave from is going to be opacity dash 100, and leave to is going to be opacity dash 0. So these are special attributes which this transition.child accepts, and they are part of headless UI. You can visit their documentation for more information here, but this creates a nice little effect when we leave or enter, when we open or close our drawer. Great. And inside I'm gonna create just a div, and you can turn this into a self-closing div, and we're just gonna give it a class name of fixed inset dash 0 bg dash black and bg dash opacity dash 40 like that. And you can go ahead now and try clicking on this drawer. Let's see if anything happens, or if we have not written enough code for this. So I'm just going to refresh this page one more time, and I'm going to try and click here. Okay, nothing happens, so we have to develop a bit further. Sorry, what I said was incorrect. The reason it doesn't work is because we did not set this set drawer anywhere except the profile drawer. So we were here in the profile drawer. Go back to header and use this set drawer open right here at the bottom, where we created an empty function for our hi ellipsis horizontal, and just put it to set drawer open true like this. And now after this hot reloads, if you try and click, you should get a little effect. Perhaps we still don't have enough code for that, but I'm pretty confident we should get an effect. So just make sure you refresh your page if your hot reload is slow. Great. So now if you try and click, you see how our screen got dark. And if you try and click escape button on your keyboard, you should be able to exit it. So you can see how headless UI gives us this default let's call that accessibility points, so we don't have to write them ourselves. Great. Usually when we created our own model, we had to write everything ourselves, but this creates us this nice smooth animations and everything else. Great. Now we can go back into profile drawer component right here, and let's continue developing. So just below this transition.child, we're going to create another div like this, and let's give it some class names. So class name is going to be fixed inset dash 0 overflow dash hidden like that. And inside of that, create another div with the following class name. So class name is going to be absolute inset dash 0 and overflow dash hidden again. Great. And inside of that div, we're going to create another one. And this one is going to have pointer dash events dash none fixed inset dash y dash 0 right dash 0 flex max dash w dash full pl dash 10. And while you are developing this, I recommend having this turned on so you can see changes in real time when they begin to happen. Great. And now that we have this inside, we're going to open another transition child, which is going to be our actual drawer. So those transitions which we just made are only for the background. So now we're going to create one for the drawer. So go ahead and write transition.child again. And we're going to give it a couple of attributes. So as fragment like this. Below that, we're going to write enter to be translate dash x dash full. So just make sure you don't misspell translate like that. Enter from, enter from is going to be translate dash x dash full. So you can just copy that here like that. And in the enter, you're going to write transform transition ease dash in dash out duration dash 500. So enter is gonna have this animation, and enter from is gonna have this initial setting. Great. Now enter 2 is gonna have translate dash x dash 0 like that. Leave is gonna have another animation here, so transform transition is dash in dash out duration dash 500, so the same as enter. And leave 2 is going to be translate dash x dash full. Great. And now inside of that we can create another dialog panel, so I'm just gonna expand this a little bit. All right, so we got a couple of errors here. I misspelled leave right here, so just make sure you write leave 2 like that and save your file so the error goes away. And inside transition.child, you're gonna open another dialog.panel like this. And dialog.panel is gonna have a couple of class names. So class name is going to be pointer dash events dash auto w dash screen and max dash w dash md like that. And I'm just going to zoom out my code so I can open this panel right here. So my code is still showing this error. That's because the cache has not reset. So you will not have this error if you correctly spelled leave 2. So mine is showing me that I wrote an invalid lave 2. So there we go, it just went away. Great, so after you've written this dialog panel inside of here, go ahead and create a div. And this div is gonna have a couple of class names. So class name inside the div is going to be flex h dash full flex dash call overflow dash y dash scroll bg dash white by dash 6 and shadow dash xl like this. Great. And inside of that div, create another div. So you can see how I got this nice little drawer right here on the side now. Great. Now inside of this div, you're gonna create a class name with px-4 smpx-6 like that. Inside of that, another div with the class name of flex. So I'm just going to collapse this since it's going to be a number of classes. So flex items dash start and justify dash end like this. Great. And now that you're inside of that div, just create another one with the class name ml-3 flex h-7 and items-center like that. So we are creating a position for our close button here. That's why we are entering so many divs right here. All right, and now inside of that, you're going to create a button element right here. Let's give it a couple of attributes. So type is going to be button. Class name is going to be rounded-md, dg-white, text-gray-400, hover, text-gray-500, focus is going to be outline. Focus is going to be outline-none. Then we're going to have focus ring-2, focus ring-sky-500, and focus ring-offset-2 like that. And inside of this button right here, what you're going to write, you're going to write a span first with a name close panel like that, and we're going to give it a class name of sr-only. So this is for our server side only. It's not going to be visible here on the client, so you should not be able to see this text. And the button we're going to use is IO close like this, and you can import IO close at the top. So I'm going to do that here. Import IO close from react-icon/IO5 like that. Great. Now let's go back right here and find our IO close button, and let's give it a size of 24 like that. So just wait a couple of seconds to see if this will render properly. Perhaps you can refresh if you cannot see everything, or maybe I missed a button. Oh, there we go. So it's right here. I just refreshed, so let's just wait a couple of seconds. I'm gonna open it again. And there we go. So you can see I have my button right here, and you can see when you press tab on your keyboard, you can see how it immediately selects that. So we are using accessibility programming here, so it's immediately selected. Great. And what I want to do on this button right here, besides the classes, so this button that wraps the IO close, I also want to give it an on click, on close, like that. And we pass the on close from the prop. Great. So just make sure you pass the on click to this button, which holds our IO close right here. And if your code has hot reloaded, and when you press on this, it should close your drawer. And there you go, you can see how it closed my drawer. So just a second for my page to refresh again. I'm gonna open again, and I can close. And I can also close using the escape button, or I can click on this gray area right here. So great. Just keep this open so you can see the changes that you're doing. So now we're going to add an avatar right here. So just go outside, but inside this last div in the dialog panel right here. So you can just press enter. So 1, 2, 3, this third div right here. Make sure you are inside of this div and inside the dialog panel right here. And you're gonna go ahead and create another div right here and give it a class name of relative empty-6 flex-1 px-4 and smpx-6 like this. Great. Now go inside of that div and create another div. The class name, of flex-call and items-center like that. And inside of that div, create another div which is going to wrap our avatar and give it a class name of mb-2. And you could just go ahead and write avatar like this, and you can import avatar from @/app/components/avatar like that. So I just imported my avatar right here at the top, and now we're going to use this other user to pass the avatar. So go back to your avatar right here and pass in the user as other user like that. And go ahead and save your file. And once this hot reloads, you should be able to see your user here. Great, so there I have the avatar of the other user. And now outside of this div which wraps the avatar, create another div. And inside you can just put the title which we created, so a variable which we created right here. And now you should be able to see the username, or if you're using a group chat, we're going to see the group name. So there we go, it says new right here. And now below that, I'm going to create another div, and I'm going to give this a class name of text-sm text-gray-500, and the variable we're going to use is status text like this. So another use memo which we created right here. So just make sure you put that in this div below the title, and there we go, we have new, and it says active right here, which of course is going to be dynamic in the future. So go outside of this div and create another div and give this a class name of flex gap-10 my-8 like that. And what we're going to do inside here is we're going to create a button to delete our conversation. So go ahead and create another div, and let's give it some properties. So on click is just going to be an empty function for now. The class names are going to be the following. So flex-call, gap-3, items-center, cursor-pointer, -pointer like that. And on hover, we're gonna have an opacity of 75 like this. Great. And now just inside of that, we're going to create two divs. So one is going to hold our icon and one is going to hold our text. So go ahead and create a class name for this div inside with values of w-10h-10 bg-neutral-100 rounded-full flex items-center and justify-center like that. And the icon we're going to use is going to be IO trash. And you can import IO trash from react-icons/IO5. So the same place we imported our IO close button for. So just make sure you import IO trash from react-icons/IO5 here. Now I'm going to go back here and I'm just going to give it a size of 20, not 200, but 20 like that. And in a couple of seconds, you're going to see the button. Great. So we have the button right here. And now I just want to give it a text. So outside of this div right here, create another div like this and give it a text of delete like that. And we're going to give this text some class names so it looks just a bit better. So I'm going to give it a class name of text-sm, font-light, and text-neutral-600 like this. And this is going to make it just a little bit muted. Great. So there we go. We have our text right here. And you can see when I hover, the opacity turns down. So once we click on this button, what we're going to do is we're going to show a model for the confirmation of whether we actually want to delete this conversation or not, so we don't do it accidentally. So let's just start wrapping this up. So we're going to create a couple of more information here. So after this delete text right here, go outside of this div, and outside of the third div right here, and create a new div. And this one is also going to have a couple of class names. So class name is going to be w-full, pb-5, pt-5, smpx-0, and smpt-0 as well. Great. And now inside of there, we're going to create another element called DL like this. So we are semantically correct with our elements. And we're going to give it a class name of space-y-8 px-4 sm space-y-6 and smpx-6 like this. And now we're going to create a conditional here. So we are only going to display this variable that I'm going to write here if we are not in a group chat. So to do that, we're going to write the following. We're going to say exclamation point data is group like this, and then we're going to open this and open parentheses like that, and now we can freely write inside what is only going to be visible in single one-on-one conversations. So go ahead and write another div inside. Let's write that DT element again, so we are semantically correct with our elements, and the class name we're going to give to this DT is the following. So we're going to write text-sm, font-medium, text-gray-500, smw-40, sm flex-shrink-0 like that. And we're going to write inside email like this. Great. And now below that, we're going to open another element called dd. So go ahead and write dd like this. And let's give this a class name. So the class name here is going to be empty-1, text-sm, text-gray-900, and sm call-span-2 like this. So you can see we have a nice little email text right here. And now inside of here, what we're going to write is other user dot email like that. So we can display the other user email. Great. And all we have to do now is create another conditional. So just outside of these curly brackets right here, open it again and again, exclamation point data.is group like this, open and just open parentheses again. And I'm going to use a fragment here like this, so I can put an HR here like that. And then I'm gonna open a div. Inside of this div, I'm going to put a DT element like we did before. So we're gonna use this as a title, and we're gonna give it a class name of text-sm, font-medium, text-gray-500, sm, w-40, sm flex-shrink-0, like that. And the title is going to be joined, like that. So you can already guess what we're going to show in the following element below that, what we're going to name DD, like this. So make a DD element inside, and let's give this a couple of class names. So class name is going to be empty-1, text-sm, and text-gray-900, and sm call-span-2, like that. Great. And all we're going to do inside is we're going to create a time element again, so we're semantically correct here. We're going to give it a date time value of joined date,